Hi, this is Courtney, and this is a quick little video on resourcefulness. And so I wanted to talk a little bit to you about business resourcefulness. And so I want to explore what resourcefulness is. Now, resourcefulness is when things are hard and or not easy, and you find a way to make it work. And you don't have a lot of resources at your disposal, so you don't have a ton of money or easy access to what you need. You have to be creative and come up with it. And quite frankly, in our society, with so much coming at us, especially media and screens available to us all the time, we are it seems like we really are in a desert of resourcefulness right now, where people don't seem to know how to be resourceful. How do I know this? I don't have any statistics on this except the fact that I train people for a living to be teachers, and I also consult with people who own businesses, especially yoga businesses. And I own a business. I've owned a couple of businesses. My fiance owns a roofing business, and I help him run that. And I've owned a yoga studio and been an administrator for a long time. I've owned a yoga school for almost 10 years now, and I've trained over 200 people. That's how I know we have a lack of resourcefulness out there. I get questions sometimes, and I'm really shocked that people don't know where to find answers and things like that, or they're not sure. And so I think this is a lost art, and we have to help each other. And so what does it look like in business? Let's say that, let me give you an everyday example. It's not a business example. Let's say you're making a cake and you think you have sugar, and you realize you don't have any sugar. And instead of saying, oh no, I can't bake this cake, you start to think, well, what do I have that's sweet? Maybe I have some applesauce, or I have some honey, or some agave nectar, or stevia. Well, you don't just go and pour, but you're not careless. You don't just go pour a cup of applesauce in there because it wouldn't be sweet enough. And you don't just go and pour a cup of stevia in there because it would taste terrible. You get on your computer or your phone or your cookbook, and you look up substitutions, and you find the right amount. So maybe 3/4 of a cup of honey is sweet enough to equal a cup of honey, and you add that to your cake. That is a really simple example of resourcefulness. So in a business, let's say you own a brick and mortar business and you are struggling to pay the bills. So some things you might do are, you might decide to have a sale and sell off some things that aren't selling to get some quick capital in. You might decide to do some guerrilla marketing, and by that I mean marketing that doesn't cost anything, like a social media blast, or a like the end of the year right now, you might say we're having an inventory sale. We have to get rid of as much of inventory as possible. So from 12 to 5 on Saturday, everything in the store is going to be 30% off. And seniors can combine their senior discount with that or whatever. So you start thinking of ways to be creative to get capital in. Another way in business is you might not want to make improvements during that time. So, and one way to look at that is in your household. So, I was a single mother for 6 years, and there were a lot of things I didn't do. And sometimes we feel like we need to do something, and one of the most powerful lessons I have learned is sometimes you need to do nothing. It is tempting to want to go and buy a new couch, but if you're not cleaning your house and keeping things clean, there's often a temptation to want to move or to buy new stuff, when really a clean and tidy house and rearranging furniture is a very resourceful way to be happy with what you have. So that was something I did a lot. I would sell old furniture, and then I would go and buy used furniture on Craigslist or at a flea market or whatever. And that was, a way that I dealt with wanting change after my divorce, but not really having the money to do that. So in a business, it might look like, let's say you need some new shelving. Your shelving's really hideous. It might mean you use some money from something that you sell to get something that you need for the store, but you don't use money that you don't have. You don't borrow from Peter to pay Paul, so to speak. Some things that keep people from being resourcefulness are being too busy, being negative and rigid in their thinking, having really narrow views, being burned out, and emotional thinking. That's a hard one because a lot of times when I'm dealing with people, I'm thinking about this sweet lady I consulted with in Washington, and she had started a business and she had gotten her registration to be a yoga teacher, and she decided that she wanted to open a yoga studio. Well, there were a lot of things going against her that she just didn't think about. The location was bad. There was no parking. She didn't have a clientele. She hadn't been teaching, but she went to school because she wanted to open a yoga studio. And so it didn't work out. And she had bought all these. So what had happened is she had invested all this money in props and in cards and all this, and she could not let go of the fact that she had spent this money. I mean, it may have been like $1,500 on this stuff, but no one was coming to class. And I, through coaching, asked her the questions that led her to be able to look at, well, what would your life look at if you put this stuff in storage and you went and got a job teaching at a local health club or a local yoga studio? And through that, visualizing a different scenario, she actually did close her studio and was much happier without the stress because, not only had she invested the money, but she was paying rent, etc. I had another situation where I had a precious studio owner who was not a yoga teacher, was a business owner, and she was in a situation where they were just barely breaking even, and they are in a tourist town, and so they had a lot of business during a certain season, and then in the off season they didn't have as much business, but they weren't changing their schedule because there's always that one or two people who are going to complain because they like the 11 a.m. class, and during the busy season it's full, but during the off season 3 people are coming. And I explained to her, well, basically what I did was I added up the loss that she was taking on keeping these schedules. And the emotional part of it was she didn't want to tell her teachers that she was going to have to cancel the class because she was fearful of hurting their feelings. So I helped her set some new policies and have some things in place beforehand to avoid those hard conversations, like classes will be on the schedule for 3 months, and if they're not making this amount, then we're going to have to cancel them. But also letting people know before they get hired that it's maybe seasonal work, things like that. I ended up saving her $3,000 a month on her. It was a savings when she made some changes to her schedule by cutting out a certain amount of classes because her payroll was so high in paying these teachers that these classes weren't paying for themselves. So emotion, and learning to be positive, helping people to see things in a positive way. And I'll give you one more way to do that, and that is, think about a situation, and you may want to write this down, where you've been really facing a challenge and a struggle, and you have a lot of fear about it. Well, this is called awfulization. And so it's when we think about the worst possible thing that can happen. And what I try to get people to do is through meditation, and I don't sit there and tell them to do anything. I don't say, think of this exact situation. I say, think of a situation where things have been really challenging for you. And I will tell you personally, for me, it was about my son who has autism. I would just visualize him sitting at home playing video games the rest of his life. Never getting out and having a life. And with this practice, I started to visualize him carrying a diploma across the stage. And graduating from a work program where he ended up getting training and a degree or a certification to do something. And so what happened was I started visualizing that every time I would worry about it. Well, that changed my language about how I dealt with him. That changed the way I saw the situation and the way I saw the possibilities. And eventually now he has just gotten out of a 10-day assessment at a school where I'm hoping and praying and believing he will get accepted. And hopefully I'll be seeing that graduation come true in about a year from now. So it's about seeing the best possible outcome. And then what happens is once we see and visualize the best possible outcome, we start to behave as if. And that's another way that we become very resourceful. If we are constantly focusing on what is lacking, then our behavior follows suit. Our words, our actions, our energy goes to the lack. And if we focus on what we want to happen, our behavior follows suit in that direction. So for instance, in our roofing business, I'm wanting to grow our roofing business and wanting to also get more local business. So I've been thinking of ways to creatively get more business. Some of those things have been, we've talked about a billboard. That's very expensive. We can't really afford that right now because we have 2 houses and we're trying to sell one. So I've been using a little bit more Facebook advertising because that's pretty cheap. Word of mouth. I've asked Jim to share his cards with more people, and he is getting out and putting up more signs while we're slow. So we're resourceful in thinking about, okay, well, how can we get the word out more when we don't necessarily have a lot of extra money? As a matter of fact, I've just been sharing more posts about our roofing business and asking people to let us earn your business. And I do find that that helps, so they remember us when they're ready for a roof. All right. Well, I hope that was helpful about resourcefulness in business. And if I can help you, my business site is balanceyogaandwellness.com. And you can go there for consulting, business consulting, whether you're a yoga business or any old business, I can help with that. Or whether you're just an individual that's struggling with some life problems, I do solution-focused coaching to help people have ask the right questions to help them succeed. All right, thanks so much, Courtney Butler Yoga on YouTube and balanceyogaandwellness.com. You can find all my resources there. My book is The Mud and the Lotus, a guide and workbook for yoga students and teachers. Thank you.